Check it out, in this video I'm going to be going over the process of making and designing your own vinyl decals. Vinyl decals are some of my favorite stickers. The transfer tape allows you to have island sections so that certain parts of the sticker don't even have to connect to the rest. I'm sure you've seen these on laptops and whatnot before, but they're also totally rated for outside. I really can't say the last time I found a vinyl that didn't both have great adhesive on the back and colors that held up really nicely over time. So these stickers are going to be great for anything like a skateboard or a snowboard, as well as tons of people use them for sides of water bottles or the back of your laptop. Alright, so let's jump into the design process of these guys and see what I went through to make them. So I definitely wouldn't say there's a strict design theory behind making plotted images, aside from really taking note to how sharp your contours are and how hard edges are, as well as more often than not things are going to be limited to one color. There are methods to making two color transfers, but that's going to be outside the scope of this video. We're just going to be getting into single color stuff here. So even if you don't have a bunch of Photoshop experience, just going through with a Sharpie design on paper will come out with a pretty clean plot. And if you think about it, plotters aren't going to want to go in and cut each individual pixel. The cut path is going to be an average amongst those pixels along that edge. At times you can step that up and really get high detail stuff, but here with all these really curved designs and whatnot, you're really going to have great contours on those edges, even with just a general design coming off of a piece of paper. So with this cursive one, I had tried to go through with the pen tool in Photoshop and kind of followed those contours, but they really weren't coming through and it wasn't looking really well. I was having a ton of trouble keeping these contours consistent between the entire shape and really just getting something that I was happy with. So later I'd actually gone back, redrawn my cursive, and just took that Sharpie drawing and went with it. I did some small touch-ups with the brush tool to smooth out some sections and reshape a little bit online, but in the end it was pretty much just that drawing. I did mention that you can have islands, so basically that's a section of the sticker that's not attached to any other part of the sticker. So unlike a stencil that needs every part connected, the transfer tape lets you have those islands. So that'll open up a ton of liberty here on what you can design and how it can actually be displayed. None of my designs here today had islands in them, but they did have interior sections that needed weaving. So in the reverse of that, there are sections that are totally surrounded by your design that you're actually going to need to pull off afterwards. So basically you can pull the backing of the sticker off altogether, but these smaller sections will need to be pulled individually. I always suggest keeping in mind how many of these small sections you actually have to weed out. It might only take a second or two for each of them, but if you have 10 per sticker, that really amplifies quite a bit when you're trying to make a bunch of these. Out of all the designs, my cursive definitely had the most, so just keep that in mind. It will add some production time. One final note about designing is that if you do have really skinny sections or your sticker super small, there's not going to be a lot of actual vinyl and sticking material to actually hold it onto the surface. This won't actually hold back you for getting the sticker on the surface, but it will hold back the durability of that sticker. And to quantify this, I would maybe suggest that you'd stay around ½ centimeter in thickness. Anything above that will be totally fine. Anything below that, you do run a little risk that it is a little too small, but in general that also comes down to the application. If this is a surface that's not going to get worn a bunch and it's more for display, that's fine, but if it's on the back of a phone going in and out of a pocket, those skinny sections might get beat up over time. Now that we've finished designing stickers, we're going to need some vinyl to actually cut out. It's most common for vinyl to be sold on rolls like this, so you'll get a few yards at a time, or if you've been cutting for a while, you might have some scraps like I do laying around. So for some of my screen printing efforts, I generally have sheets cut down so I can actually screen print on consistent flat stock. So I've got those left over from that, and that's what I'll basically be using. But anything like the rolls, you can normally just trim down into small sheets and either load individually on a bed printer like I have, or on larger machines you can actually spool the entire roll and just cut directly onto the sticker. Both will be having the same concept, so don't worry if you have either. So in this video I'm going to be using the Silhouette Cameo. This is, like I mentioned, a bed feed printer. So that means we're actually going to be loading a cutting mat and cutting onto this so that it doesn't actually cut through this backside. This machine, like almost everyone, supports both the cutting mat and not. It's just a little easier when you have these small sections that don't span across the entire width, that you can actually still cut them with the mat on the background because it's able to load the mat and move this around rather than having to just move the material. Alternatively, on those bigger rolls, or if your material does span across the entire width, you can just load the material itself and it'll cut directly through that. And ideally when you're cutting decals in particular, you don't need to cut through the entire backing, so that's alright. But if you're going to go through the entire backing and make some kiss cuts or really just have the sticker pop off, you're then going to also need that backing so that the stickers don't fall off or get misplaced as you're cutting them. So plotters make all their cuts with a very small blade. Here I've got mine on the left side. So this blade is super small. You can see it's just poking out below that little white section. This blade too also has a height control. It basically lets you define how deep of a cut you want to make into the material. So this is going to be a case-by-case basis. Here with the Silhouette, I find a 2 is perfect for vinyl. It cuts just through the sticker well enough so it's easy to weed, but it also doesn't cut into that backing too much. For the Cameo, you can place your blade in this little section here and then actually rotate it to change that height. This has 10 different increments, but one of my other plotters has a nice threaded piece so you can get it really tailored in. I'm going to keep mine at that too, and then just load it back on. This size cutting mat's actually an add-on to the Silhouette. The normal one that comes with it is a 12 by 12 area. I got this 12 by 24 when I needed a little bit larger for some bigger sheets. But basically it's just a piece of plastic. I'm sure I could buy anything to remake it myself. But what's nice with this is you do have a grid inch layout, so you can size things up and know how big your sheets are and where to locate them. This also has a tacky surface to hold on to the vinyl. That tack might work for maybe 20 to 50 times, but eventually you're going to need some extra spray tack just so you're not rebuying those, $20 sheets every time. These cans are really cheap. I think this one came from Michaels. It's just called Spray Mount. It's any light adhesive will really do fine here. In the past, I've also used palette adhesive from screen printing. I might spray down once every 10 or so stickers now. So if I were to go and cut this red sheet, probably just tack down a couple little sprays. You can actually feel it's nice and tacky now, and then you can just lay it down. Starting in that left corner is always easiest. You got to travel less to start it, and you've just got the nice edge to work with. Now for loading my machine, I like to bump it up against this hard edge. This is not something recommended by the manufacturer directly, but what I find it most helpful for is keeping that sheet straight as it's cutting. The last thing you want this to do is start loading cockeyed, and then your cut's going to be all skewed. I'm sure other machines have other ways of solving this, but this is the easiest and best way that I've found. So once again, put it in that corner, get it nice and snug up against these white rollers, and then I'm going to hit the load button. So over here on the small control panel, we've got a couple options. It's just for the machine to know what you're actually putting in it. I'm obviously going to be loading the cutting mat. You can also load the media directly, which means you're not using the cutting mat at all. And by pressing that, you can see it loads it up and gets everything in position. And then you can see now we've got an unload selection if you do need to unload the sheet. Now this is totally set up and ready to cut. Let's get over onto the software and load our image. Alrighty, so the software is called Silhouette Studio. I obviously have it downloaded already, so I'm just going to load it up and we can get going. Now I'm going to go into the design section, set up my sheet size. That small sheet was about 6 inches wide by 15 inches long. There's also that section at the top and bottom that have the small calendared circles. So what I'm going to do is not design too close to these top and bottom sections. Next I'm going to click File Open and select my images. I've got my 3 designs here, and unfortunately I have to go one by one. Let's start with the cursive. You can see the image comes in quite large as from designing in Photoshop, so we're going to go over to this top section here and click the Scale tool. Then by selecting on the design, I can scale that down. So I definitely like the cursives at that larger size, so let's see what 6 inches wide looks. So that's going to leave plenty of room to these edges, and seeing that the image wasn't totally cropped right to the image, I can now get a better idea and stretch that out. I'm just going to do File Open again, select some of the other designs. This will put it into another file since you are opening something new, but basically just scale it down and then paste it into the other one. Control C to copy and Control V to paste. So it looks like I'm actually going to be able to fit all of these once very nicely. So what I'm going to do is center these up and give myself a little bit extra tolerance on that size. I don't want them to run off the edge. I might actually be able to squeeze in 2 of these cursives. So I'm just going to rotate it nicely, scale it down in order to get both. Good happy medium to have 2 stickers a little bit smaller rather than just one large one. So now we're going to go over to the trace tool on the top right. This basic premise is saying that you want to select the area that you want to have the actual plotter plot and cut through. And now the program's trying to visualize what area you're actually trying to cut. These tools are very common through the other plotter programs I've used. Basically what you're doing is filtering the design to show the machine what you want to cut. So the high pass filter is basically like a threshold. It's taking those darker areas and turning them into totally solid sections. And the same with the low pass filter. It'll basically do it from the reverse. Since this is just a black image already set up for plotting, all we really need is that threshold. So you can see the designs have some varying blacks toward those edges, and what you can do is bump that threshold up to try and get a little bit smoother of an image. The scale will also show you the smallest pixel available, so when you make it really large, you're going to see it's going to get a little bit more blocky on those edges. So drop your scale down, and I really just leave the threshold at the base. It actually averages out a lot of these designs, so you're not going to have nearly as bumpy of an edge as you're seeing right there. So that looks plenty fine, and now we can choose what type of trace we want to do. When we start with trace and detach, we can take a look at that and see that it's only cutting out that very exterior line, and it's actually cropping the image itself. Control Z to go back. We can then trace the outer edge, which does the very similar thing but actually makes these a cut line. Anything in red you see as a cut line aside from that bounding box corner. But what you can see is you're also not getting these interior details. This works great if you're trying to do, a contour cut around a design, but it's not going to work well for us if we want this interior information. So we'll basically Control Z back, and just the general trace option, you can see it's got basically the double butterfly section, And what that's going to do is also trace those interior sections. You can pull off all three and see that they all have their interior sections looking nice. So it does come through as one block since you did do the entire section. So I'm just going to go through and make the cursive one once again. You can actually delete all these images if you don't want them. They're off the side and they're not cut, so even leaving them right here is not going to do anything with this. You can also print through a lot of plotter programs, which means that you can also get, registration marks and whatnot. But that's a really in-depth tutorial in itself, so we're not going to be getting into printing and, setting up registration marks for large print jobs in this. So now we can go over to the cut setting. Here you're going to actually have a library of materials that have some predefined cut settings. So we're going to go after the vinyl. So by default, I think it suggests you only have a 1 cut depth, but I've updated it to 2 here. The speed here will actually be the cut speed. So if you get things tailored up and you're running big batches, you can actually speed that up quite a bit and it'll run through them. Once again, this thickness is predefined. Doesn't give us a unit. This is a program's measurement to say how far to put that blade down onto the piece. There's all the selections like double cutting, so it'll actually score everything twice if you have a big backing that you need to go through and you don't want to press through all at once. So I've just plugged the plotter in and now we're ready to go. So you can hear the motors in there are very robotic, but it's basically going through and sending all of this information as a position for that blade to actually cut through the vinyl. So by moving the backing in one direction and the blade in the other, you're getting the entire X and Y directional plane, so you can cut really any shape you want. You can also see the blade jumping up and down to start and end cuts, and move into new sections. Let's speed this up and see how the cut came out. So now we should be good just to peel off this section and see what we got. So I've got a couple of my fresh cut strips here. We got 3 designs on each of them. And to begin the weeding process, you're going to want to start with that really large background area. This design is totally smooth curves, so weeding this is going to be pretty easy. All the shapes will just peel off real nicely. As well as having that correct cut depth will let the background peel right off and leave your sticker there without much trouble and finagling around the edges. If the cut depth isn't deep enough, you're actually going to have some areas where it's going to still maintain its connection, and if it's too deep you might actually cut down into the backing. Both of those are super undesirable. If you cut all the way through it, you're going to end up with a pretty mess of a sticker. You're not going to be able to weed it too easily, and if you don't cut it enough, it's not even going to be possible to weed it. So here we go, flipping up the corner, using just a general X-Acto blade here. There are special tools for this, but I've always just used an X-Acto blade. It's small enough and sharp enough to just pick up those edges when you do need to peel. Making sure that I'm pulling away from the design, as well as making sure not to let any of these little pieces touch back down on maybe some other areas that I don't want to weed away. I almost like to pull flush over top of the rest of the sticker, because that gives it a nice bend here where we really pick up these corners where it might actually stick. You can see this just goes real nicely, and then as you get going you can move faster, and as you get more comfortable, maybe you are weeding through 10 or 15 of these, you know what sections might get a little bit hung up, but all in all, you can see it pulled off just fine. Now the picking process is definitely the most tedious of this. You're basically going to go in and have to pick out all these little center sections that you don't actually want in your design. A method I like to use is almost like a pushing method. So here we've got this whole section here that needs to be removed. I just basically pick the rightmost area and push it a little bit, and then go over and just pick it up with my hand. Normally gets the edge under it, and then once you do start collecting a bunch on your fingers, they'll kind of catch on each other just fine. Sections like this that are smaller, they might actually get caught then again on top of the sticker. I like to just kind of pull them off without scratching it or anything. Might leave a little bit of mark depending on the type of vinyl you're using, but more or less it'll come out invisible. Once again, just pushing. This one's a little bit smaller one, so maybe I'll pull it out to the easier side that I can grab it. Same with this bit on the E. And then sometimes you're left with these little pieces. I either flip them away or stab them with the end of the X-Acto blade and just collect them with my hand. That section right there is super small, so sometimes I won't even bother picking at that. It'll just leave it there, and then by the time you actually get to applying the sticker, it'll have fallen out. Now your desk will end up with a bunch of these little small pieces laying around. It's not really the easiest to try and save them or use them for anything, but my best note is to always make sure you're kind of keeping a central area where you're throwing them all to. They'll end up getting stuck on or caught in between other stickers or in between your transfer layers, so if you leave these around, they're kind of nasty bits that'll get in your way later. So definitely try to keep your mess in mild organization, as you don't want to have to be fiddling with everything 2 or 3 times around. Going to be rinse, wash, and repeat for the rest of these guys. Pull that backing off, moving a lot faster. I know it's really not going to get hung up on anything. You can see pulled up a little bit here, You just smooth it back out. It's really not going to change how the end sticker performs. If you didn't cut deep enough, these little bits are not going to come up nearly as easily. I'll show you a section right now where I'm actually going through with some of those other designs. So in the corners where these sections actually come together, you would think it would cut through enough, but with the thinner cut line, it actually has a little bit of trouble in those sections. And that's a good thing to look out for, is that if your sticker isn't actually peeling up in those corners, your cut depth is probably not deep enough. You might feel a little bit of a raised area where the cut actually has pressed into that backing, but as long as you're not actually cutting through the backing, you should be just fine. In this section I had some of the backing actually stick to the mat, so it ripped off, and still you can see here that there's no actual section that's actually protruding through even, half the thickness of that backing. Now we're going to be adding the transfer tape to these stickers. The big bonus here is, one, you're going to be able to keep your shape maintained, so if you have some straggling sections out there, stuff like this, it's going to actually place down just as it is in the first backing. And then secondly, if you have any islands or independent sections that aren't connected to the rest of the sticker, when you transfer these on, it's actually going to maintain the correct distance and the geometry that you're originally looking for. So in this tag design, you're not actually going to have to stick down this apostrophe, or even the fact that this V and E are totally separated from the S and the I. And here in the pixel design, all of these are totally separated, but by using the transfer tape, that section is going to be maintained, and then you can remove the transfer tape afterwards. There's a few different types of transfer tape rolls. On camera, both of these look relatively similar, but here we have more of a parchment paper color, so you're not going to see the colors as well through this sticker. Just as a sample, you can still see the design, but it's a little bit more clouded. The second type is much more clear. It does generally cost a little bit more to grab this transfer tape than the other stuff, but you're going to be able to see those colors, and the design is quite a bit better on the inside. For anything personal use and that I know the design pretty well, I'm going to be using the cheaper stuff, but any stickers I'm trying to share with somebody else, having the clear stuff really works well. So I'll be using the more clear material in this video. If I were to be doing just one single strip like this, I could probably just cut off a section and tape it down by hand, but when you have a bunch of different stickers at hand, it's not really feasible to do one at a time. So I'm going to go through this process a few times, teaching you how to unroll and press it down at the same time. So you obviously need your transfer tape, but you're also going to need a straight edge of sorts. I'm going to be using this plastic ruler. Metal rulers sometimes gouge the plastic a little bit, so this is just going to be a little bit safer and softer. They do have kind of larger squeegee materials as well. So first, make sure your area is clear from any of those little bits and debris from actually weeding the vinyl, and then you're going to want to stick down one small section of the transfer tape. I'm just pressing this to the table so I have an even edge. This will give me a nice edge to hold the roll down, and also make sure that it's going to be an even application. You can then stretch out the transfer tape to the size you need, and at times you can just leave the sticker underneath beforehand as well. Easy as this, you're just going to take the ruler and slowly come across the design. Smooth it down, make sure you got nice contact between the sticker and the transfer tape, and then I like to roll the transfer tape back up a little bit. This will make sure you don't waste too much, and then you can just snip off the edge. Just trim down the extra edges. Now we're going to follow the same concept, but do a bunch of these designs at the same time. I like to leave a few inches on either side of the transfer tape, just in case I don't get it exactly lined up and straight rolled out. Maybe if it does trail off to one side toward the end, I'm not going to end up having to, recut an entire one. So once again, I'm going to start by placing down my straight edge over on the one side. Going to smooth out that first section. I can stretch out a little section to start, and then begin applying the transfer tape. So I've actually now caught on the edge of all the stickers, and now I like to extend past the end on each of them. I'm now making contact with each of the stickers, so they're not going to move at all while I'm stretching and smoothing, as well as I can now stretch across the whole thing, and doing one final pass will ensure the most smooth application of the transfer tape. And now you can really just trim them down into individual stickers, and you've got yourself a finished product. So one of my favorite things to do with the vinyl stickers is actually make a drop shadow effect by using two stickers of the same type. You can see here when I made this drop shadow, I put the white sticker on first and then did the black sticker on top. But you can actually see that because of the contour, we're not actually getting a consistent drop shadow here. This is because of the curved surface, so I'm going to actually stick them together first and then apply them to the bottle. In order to do that with this sticker that already has the backing on it, I'm going to actually have to take that off, so I'm just slowly peeling up the transfer tape. I'm going to smooth that out, make sure that it's nice and flush, and now I can apply the green sticker back over top of that. So I'm just going to peel up the green sticker as if I was applying it to the surface. Now I'm going to try and line it up with a nice drop shadow underneath. Having the more clear backing makes this a lot easier than with the more opaque stuff. That looks pretty nice. Now I got the nice drop shadow below it. And now I'm just going to try and make sure that the white is now stuck to that green section. And I should be able to peel them both up now. You can see you got that underlying white. Then after I apply it, we should have something along the lines of that. Now to simply apply the sticker, just smooth it out, make sure that the entire sticker is really stuck down. The benefit with a decal is that if you do have two sections that you might need to actually trim here to get a smooth application, the sticker bends and folds and really conforms to that area nicely. It can get you more complex shapes than maybe just a regular square sticker. It has a lot of areas that don't want to actually bend or fold. The sticker has now been nicely applied, but you're going to want to peel up that backing just so nicely. So if you peel it up fast, you're going to have some sticker that probably actually peels off of the surface. By pressing it down onto the surface, you're actually pressing the backing onto the sticker as well. So it's not always an easy solution. So you can kind of work it back and it'll actually start peeling down off the transfer tape. Now this is really just most common with, really tight detailed stuff, and the bigger sections obviously have a little bit more hold, so they hold on a little bit better in this initial process. So now I'm just going to smooth out, maybe hold on to a section as I'm peeling the area away next to it, making sure that nothing is really peeled up and gets all funky. Cool. And now the final step, I like to flip the transfer tape over so now the sticky side is on my thumbs, and just really press it down and make sure it's making good contact with the surface. There we have the final cursive product. You can see I've got a nice big dent here on the water bottle, but it totally fits that area, and without any issue it totally conforms in there. So hopefully, even if there is a future dent, it'll keep itself nice. Looks pretty good. Smooth that out. Still got on the bolt a little bit, but at least it wasn't going totally over top for that end. I'm just going to use that method where I'm just rolling it back across the surface, allowing it to hold on as much as possible. And then the reverse side again. I'm going to take my X-Acto blade and trim around this bolt just so that it doesn't come up a little bit during use, and then creates a weak spot for the rest of it to peel up. And now it also looks like the bolt was actually applied over top of the design. Surprisingly, these small sections haven't seen much issue yet either. So I've been riding with these stickers for about a season, so maybe after time they'll see a little bit more peel up, but for now they're all holding them nicely, besides that really skinny section that also came to a point. Well, I definitely had a great time making all these decals. It was great to get back on the plotter and test it out with a few different designs. As always, these massive ones are definitely my favorite, especially with the cursive design. As you can see, I definitely got a few to put aside for myself and use for some projects here in the future. I started with the helmet and water bottle, but I'm sure I'm going to find some placements for these on my snowboard as well. And I will say a few of these have actually graced the slopes already. I posted a few on my Instagram story one night, as well as one in the feed. If you're not following over there already, it's S1VE. As you can see, I've got a nice little assortment of envelopes that are packaged into two different sticker pack types. So I went ahead and designed these packs around the vinyl stickers, so these are going to be the main piece that are going to be coming with all of these packs. And I also have two different sizes of the packs. I've got a 10 and a 20 sticker base pack. Both packs will be pretty much broken up into three categories. We've got hand-drawn stickers, we've got the vinyl decals, as well as some prints of my own stuff. And additionally, as always, there'll be a little mixed pack of other people's work in there as well. Those stickers have come from trades or exchanges or even sticker submissions. And obviously the vinyl decals and stuff are totally rated to be used outside. Some of the other hand-drawns and prints might not be able to, but there'll be a nice range in there. Some that are durable enough to put on anything that really sees a lot of wear, as well as some that are more of a, keep in a book or display yourself kind of stuff. So since most of the work in here is totally spread out and random, I'm going to pick one pack of each of the 10 and the 20 option and show it off and see what you might end up getting. Here's the 10 sticker pack. So this pack is going to come with about 10 stickers of mine and 10 stickers from other artists. So you're actually getting about 20 stickers in the whole lot. So the first thermal of my design is the stipple tag. Next up we got a pixel. Nice little alternative cursive to the new one I made. So all the decals in the 10 pack are going to be made out of the new decals I made, and two of them are probably going to be colored. So here we got a light blue and kind of that perspective change one. Then we got the yellow and just the standard, and then the white and the other perspective. Looks like we got a nice FOMS hand drawn, and this is all the other work that I mentioned before. Another character hand drawn, some black and white prints. Now there will be mostly black and white prints, as I've got a ton of leftover customs, but I did throw in a few of those hand drawns, and it looks like my hand drawns are stuck in at the back. Little smash piece. stickers. And for the hand-drawns, each pack came with a throw-up of sorts, so something maybe 2 stickers wide, or just a single sticker, and then a tag as well. Once again, the breakdown of the 10 sticker pack is 10 stickers of mine, 10 stickers from other artists, 3 decals, 2 hand-drawns, and then 5 prints from myself. Let's take a look at this 20 pack. Now the big bonus of the 20 packs is they're all going to come with one of the larger decals in them. All those decals were sized to above 8 inches wide, so it looks like in this one we've got one of the large cursive decals. So I'll start with that since I'm talking about it. So we got a large, I think these ones came out to a little over 8 inches, but basically massive decal in red as well. This is going to be a nice quality pack. So these will actually be featuring 6 decals total. So we've got a little tag one. This is an older version, so those are not featured in the smaller packs. And we got the black one, got the white of the small guy, we got a cursive in there, a large perspective one. Then there should be at least 3 of my own hand-drawns in there, so we got a tag once again. There's another version of a throwy that you might get. Another tag. This one actually seems to have a couple extras as well. And then there's going to be a whole range of 10 different prints. These are actually eggshells. You're going to see probably some of the very similar ones. So we got the stippled tag, pixel once again, old Winter Wild style there, a little smaller. And we got the Hazard Wild style, also a small guy, enlarged Winter Wild style S, cursive, old drip tag. This is actually a contour cut one with a little glitch, old business card with the urban camo on there. Actually came with a little bonus extra decal of just some font work I was messing around with at one time. And then also a 10 pack of other people's work. So we got the little hand-drawn P, another Smash guy, a Vines vinyl, that's actually eggshell as well, Yos, CM, Grizz hand-drawn, and look at that, even another one snuck in there. That might have been a mistake, there's so many vinyls in there, but keep that in there as good luck. It's already in there, why not keep it? 6 of them are going to be the decals, with 1 being the mega decal, and then you're going to get some of those hand-drawns as well in there, and then that little mix pack of hand-drawns and print stuff from other people. So these packs are going to be starting at $8 for the 10 pack and $15 for the 20 pack. I think that's a super fair price for all the stickers and quality that you're going to be getting. So be sure to head over to my web store, sive.bigcartel.com, and pick one up if you're interested. These vinyl decals are beyond perfect for stuff like laptops, water bottles, you know, snowboards like I said, skateboards even. So be sure to check these out if you got some surfaces that need a little bit of spicing up. Be sure to spray that like button if you enjoyed the video, and consider joining the crew by subscribing. I post weekly art related videos, much of which goes into the graffiti category. This week we got the graffiti decals and whatnot. Last week I was actually digging through a bunch of old artwork and whatnot and checking some of that stuff out. So if you missed that video, it'll be linked on screen right now, as well as YouTube gods think you might like this other video on screen. Who knows what it might be, but consider checking that out as well. That's gonna do it for me, guys. Peace.